everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Fiddle. I am an artist, a crafter, and a miniaturist that likes to teach others that they can be creative too. Link to Scavenger Hunt, patterns, and materials is listed in the description box below. And please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment. It really helps me out a lot with YouTube's algorithm. Okay, are you ready? Let's go. Today we are starting part 3 of our cold porcelain clay doll remake, and this is all about the head. We are going to start with our wooden bead, and we're going to draw lines from one hole to the other, taking up about a fourth of the bead. This area is going to need to be left open with no clay or anything, because this is where the neck joint is going to be sitting on top of the torso. Next, take a rubber band and cut it open and string it through the bead. This is what's going to hold the head on our little straw so we can work with it without worrying about messing it up too much. Then cut your straw about 2.5 to 3 inches long and string your rubber band through it. Next, take a bit of tape and pull up your ends of your rubber band and tape them to your straw, and that'll hold it in place for now. To help with the straw wanting it to go flat on you, stick your chopstick through the other end of the straw, and that'll make 1, the handle longer, and 2, it'll make it to where the end of it won't collapse on you when the head bobs around. Now you're ready to start forming your head. I found the easiest way to do this was with styrofoam balls. Cut the foam balls in half. I used one bigger one and then a smaller one for the chin area. The first bigger one you're going to want to put at the crown of the head. I used white glue for this part. Super glue will eat away at your foam ball. The second smaller ball you want to put just where you drew your line, where the chin would be. Once you have them set where you want them, go ahead and wrap it with tape until it's dry. Once it's dry, we're ready to take the tape off and start adding our clay. For this layer, we are not going to have any details. We're just going to make sure that we stick to our parameters that we have set already, leaving the hole in the area that we have our pencil drawn open. You want to keep in mind that you constantly want to move your piece so you can see it from all angles. But once you have a design you like, go ahead and set it aside and let it dry for a few minutes. This will firm up the clay and give us a better surface to attach our buttons to. Speaking of buttons, we gotta pick what color eyes we want. And then we're going to stitch the buttons themselves. If you just have one button, that's perfectly fine. Draw your string through the holes and tie it on the back and super glue. If you use 4 buttons, as I did, then you would just sew the 2 together and then super glue them. Your clay should still be malleable enough that you can actually indent the buttons into the head where you want them. Just keep in mind which direction you want your stitches to go. That will honestly change the look of your head or face. One thing that I will say that I didn't realize until way too late was that while I was doing the eyes, I was pushing too hard on the chin, smushed it a little bit. And with the angle that I had my light, I did not notice this until way after the fact. But be mindful of where you are putting your fingers while you're working on this. I should have held on to the stick because that's what it's there for. It is all a learning process. Once you have your eyes set where you want them, go ahead and let it dry for a day. You don't have to worry about gluing them in or anything because the clay was still wet and they'll stick just fine. For this doll, I really wanted to try to do more with the facial details. As you can see from my last doll, I barely gave her a nose. And this time I really did want to try to make a more accurate face. It's the next day and we're ready to start with the clay details. I have begun to learn that it's best to start with the center of the face and radiate out. With that being said, we're going to start with the nose. And for that, you're going to want to make a tiny triangle. Then use your tools to blend out the edges and get the shape that you want. Okay, set the head aside to dry at least 8 to 24 hours, and then we're going to move on to the hair. I used an old knitted sweater that had moth holes in it and took it apart strand by strand. I've had this stuff for a while. I made that doll there with it. You'll want to turn the yarn into wefts of hair, and I did this by laying down a thin line of white glue and put them in groups of 5 right next to each other, and then I'd move on to the next set of 5. I think that I made around 30 wefts, and I used all of them plus a few individual strands as well. Once I had them all laid out, I took a grocery bag and cut it into strips, laid it over the glue line, and used my finger to pat it down a little bit. I did this so that way my glue tags were nice and flat. You do not have to do this step if you don't want to, and it will make it take longer to dry. And remember, you can always come back and make more, and because we're using a white glue, if you don't use them, you can always wash the strands and reuse them later. Now we're going to turn our attention back to our dolls and do the upper lip. Since I'm making a custom doll in someone's likeness, I pulled up their photo so I can try to get a little bit of a resemblance going between the two. Some of the things that I was trying to pay attention to while doing this was how far up the corner of her mouth was compared to the corner of her eye and the corner of her nose, and then slowly pushing on the clay until I can get it in about the same spot. The space between the nose and the lip was a little bit hard to try to figure out how to get it to the right shape. And quite honestly, I kind of took a sketch approach to it where I would push the clay, look at it from different angles to see if it was in a good enough spot. And if it was, then I would leave it. If not, then I would push it around a little bit more until I thought that it looked similar to her, but still keeping in mind that she's supposed to be a scary witch. So I didn't give her a smile or give her full cheeks. I left them sunk in just a smidge. Another thing to think about is lighting. What direction your light is coming from will play a role in how your face looks too. I would suggest straight down or from behind you. From the side, it casts too many shadows, and that takes away from the details, and you could miss something. For the upper lip, since there's more detail there, I started with the center of the lip and worked my way to the edges, but for the bottom lip, I went from the edges to the center. I'm not really sure if it made much of a difference either way, but I do know that for the overall face, or for anything like that in general that has lots of detail, the best bet is always to start from the center and work your way out. I didn't leave for dry time in between the upper and lower lips. I went ahead and kept on working straight through. And I moved from the lips to the eyebrows straight away. And all the tips and tricks are the same as before. Once you have the head to your liking, let it dry for a full day, and then we're going to make a wig cap. But before we can do that, we have to protect the head. What we're going to do is take a grocery bag and wrap it around and bring the point of the grocery bag, or where you gather it, towards the face, because we want the shape of the head open, because that's where the wig cap goes. It's for the hair. Hold it on with a rubber band, and then we're going to outline where we want our hairline to be. While you're drawing your hairline, be sure to avoid the holes that we stick the rubber band through. I'm using a paint marker because it would transfer to the inside of the wig cap, making sure my lines are straight. I somehow misplaced the footage of me starting the wig cap, but that's okay, it's pretty simple to explain. I used a hairnet for this part, but you can use any sort of mesh fabric for it. But what you do is you take the mesh and wrap it around the head, making sure that the back area where you're wanting your skull cap to be is nice and smooth, and all the wrinkles are down towards the face where the rubber band is. Then you mix up some glue and paint it on over top of it. You'll have to go over it quite a few times and build up the layers, but this will give you a nice surface that we can glue the hair to. Let it dry in between the layers, and then let it dry for a full day before you take the rubber band off. And after you get the rubber band off, don't pull up on the sides of your mesh fabric. That'll break apart your mold you just made. Once you have the head out, go ahead and trim around the edges. It may look a bit funny once you get the cap on. If the plastic is still stuck to the inside of the wig cap, go ahead and pull it out before you start this part. Add a dab of glue to the inside of the wig cap and stick it to another plastic bag that you've covered the head with to protect it. This will help hold the wig cap on while you're applying the hair, and you don't have to worry about it sliding around on the head itself and sticking in a place that you don't want it. So make sure that you're still protecting your head. To attach the hair wefts, I pulled them off of the plastic and trimmed off all the excess glue that I can, and most of the strands that are attached. We just want a very thin line of glue holding them together, and then you just stick it on the wig cap, starting at the bottom base of the back of the neck and working your way around and towards the top of the head. Be sure to leave a bit of dry time in between each layer. If you go and push your thumb on layers that you've already put down, you'll make the hair stick to parts that you don't want it to, and it won't hang properly. Once you have all of your hair glued on, let it dry for a full day before you remove the wig cap and glue it to her head. You can do that with super glue, wood glue, or even white glue. It's up to you. Or if you would like to have multiple color options, you could even make more than one wig and not glue them at all. If you would like a custom cold porcelain clay doll, you can always reach out to me. I'd love to talk about it. I will be opening a shop very soon, and if you haven't already, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because it really helps me out a lot, and I'll see you next time.